fake documents. I stole the originals from Papa's safe. I betrayed my own blood for money I never even got. And now I'm paying the price." The room fell silent except for the beeping of hospital monitors. Adewale felt something shift in his chest, anger giving way to pity, betrayal giving way to understanding. His brother had fallen far, driven by jealousy and desperation into decisions that had destroyed him from the inside out. "Tomorrow," Adewale said firmly, "you'll tell your lawyer to withdraw the case. You'll make a written confession about the forgery. You'll return whatever you still have. And then we'll see if the ancestors accept your repentance. And if they don't," Kunnel whispered fearfully, "then at least you'll face whatever comes with a clear conscience." That night, as Adewale and Folake checked into a hotel near the hospital, he received a call from Mama Alaj. He hadn't told her about Kunnel's breakdown. "The land has spoken to me," she said without greeting. "Your brother is ready to make amends. The ancestors sense his genuine remorse. If he follows through, if he publicly confesses and makes restitution, the curse will lift. But he must do it willingly, not out of fear alone." "How did you know?" Adewale asked, stunned. "The land tells me all I need to know. Bring him home, Adewale. Bring him back to the village. Let him confess before the family and the community. Let him pour libation at the Irako tree and ask forgiveness. Only then will he be free." The next morning, Kunnel signed the papers withdrawing his legal claim. His lawyer, Femi, looked disgusted but said nothing. He had suspected something was off about the documents anyway. Kunnel wrote out a full confession, detailing everything: the theft of the original documents, the names of the forgers he'd hired, the bribes paid to officials. He signed it in front of witnesses and had it notarized. "I want copies sent to the magistrate, to Chief Badmus, and to the village council," Kunnel said, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "Everyone needs to know what I did." When the confession reached Chief Badmus, the crime lord was furious, but he was also pragmatic. With Kunnel's written admission of forgery, the chief's own involvement could be exposed. He sent word that Kunnel's debt was forgiven in exchange for his silence about who had helped create the fake documents. Kunnel agreed. He had no money to pay anyway, and he had bigger concerns than debt. 3 days later, Adewale drove Kunnel back to the village. His brother was a shadow of his former self, thin, haunted, humble in a way he had never been before. The entire village gathered at the family compound. Chief Ogunlade, who had read the original will, sat in his chair looking both disappointed and hopeful. The extended family whispered among themselves. Mama Alaj stood by the Irako tree, waiting. Kunnel stood before them all, his head bowed. In his hands he held the stolen documents. He had kept copies despite everything, unable to fully let go until now. "I stand before you as a thief and a liar," Kunnel began, his voice carrying across the compound. "I stole from my brother, forged documents to cheat him of his rightful inheritance, and brought shame to my family name. I blamed my father for being unfair, but the truth is I was jealous of my brother's integrity, his hard work, and my father's respect for him." He walked to the Irako tree and knelt before it, placing the documents on the ground. "To my ancestors, I beg forgiveness. To my brother, I offer no excuses, only my deepest apology. The land should belong to Adewale. It always should have. I tried to steal a blessing that was never mine, and I have paid for it in ways I never imagined." Tears streamed down Kunnel's face as he poured palm wine at the base of the tree, the traditional offering for ancestral forgiveness. The village watched in silence. Then Mama Alaj stepped forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "The ancestors have heard. They accept your repentance, Kunnel Adebayo, but acceptance is not the same as restoration. You have learned that stolen blessings become curses. Remember this lesson. Carry it with you, and know that the path back to honor is long and difficult." She turned to Adewale. "And you, rightful owner of this land, the ancestors ask what justice you seek. The law will punish your brother for forgery if you pursue it. What do you choose?" All eyes turned to Adewale. He looked at his broken brother, kneeling in the dirt, and thought about revenge, about justice, about family. Finally, he spoke. I choose mercy. The words hung in the air like morning mist. Adewale watched his brother's shoulders shake with sobs, and he felt the weight of generations on his own shoulders. His father had taught him that true strength was not in punishment, but in knowing when to extend grace. I choose mercy, Adewale repeated, louder this time. But mercy does not mean forgetting. Kunal, you will work on this land. Not as an owner, not as a partner, but as a worker, learning the value of honest labor, understanding what you tried to steal. You will rebuild what your greed has broken, starting with our relationship. Kunal looked up, his face a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. You would give me a chance? After everything? Papa taught us that family is sacred, Adewale said quietly. You forgot that lesson. Now you'll relearn it, one day at a time. Chief Ogunlade rose from his seat, his old bones creaking. This is wisdom. The ancestors are pleased. Let it be recorded that Adewale Adebayo has shown the kind of leadership this family needs. The villagers murmured their approval. Some still looked at Kunal with suspicion. Trust, once broken, would take time to rebuild. But they respected Adewale's decision. Mama Alaj performed a cleansing ritual, washing Kunal's hands and feet with sacred water mixed with herbs. The curse is lifted, she declared. But remember, the land has a long memory. Walk carefully from this day forward. That night, Kunal slept in the old room he had shared with Adewale as a child. For the first time in months, he had no nightmares. The ancestors were silent, their message delivered and received. In the morning, Adewale made a phone call to Canada. Mr. Thompson? This is Adewale Adebayo. I wanted to inform you that the land dispute has been resolved. All documents are in order. If your company is still interested in the partnership. There was a pause, then laughter on the other end. Mr. Adewale, we've been waiting for this call. We did our research. We heard about what happened, the forgery, the family conflict. We also heard how you handled it. That kind of integrity is exactly what we want in a partner. When can we schedule a meeting? 3 weeks later, representatives from the Canadian agricultural firm arrived in the village. They toured the land, saw the miraculous crops growing near the Irako tree, and were impressed by the community's enthusiasm. But there was one condition they hadn't expected. My brother will be part of this venture, Adewale told them during the negotiation. Not as an equal partner. He hasn't earned that, but he'll manage the administrative side. He has experience in Lagos with business operations, and he needs a chance to prove himself. Mr. Thompson, the lead negotiator, exchanged glances with his colleagues. That's unusual, given what happened. In my culture, Adewale explained, we believe that a man who has fallen and learned from his fall can be stronger than one who has never been tested. My brother made terrible choices. Now he has a chance to make better ones. They agreed. The contract was signed on a bright Saturday morning, with the entire village in attendance. Kunal stood to the side, no longer the proud city businessman, but a humbled man in simple clothes, ready to work. The partnership transformed everything. Modern equipment arrived, tractors, irrigation systems, solar-powered storage facilities. The Canadian company brought agronomists who taught sustainable farming techniques. Within 6 months, the farm was producing 3 times its previous yield. Jobs were created. Young people who had left for cities like Lagos began returning home, seeing opportunity where before there was only struggle. The village school received new funding, built from the farm's profits. A health clinic opened, staffed by a doctor and 2 nurses. Kunal worked harder than he ever had in his life. He woke at dawn to help with the farm operations, spent his days managing logistics and paperwork, and collapsed into bed each night exhausted but strangely content. The curse had lifted, but the lessons remained. One evening, 6 months after his confession, Kunal sat with Adewale on the veranda, watching the sun set over the land that had almost destroyed him. Do you remember when we were boys? Kunal asked quietly. We would race from the compound to the Irako tree. I always had to win. I couldn't stand it when you beat me. Adewale smiled. I remember. You would cheat sometimes, take shortcuts through the cassava fields. I've been cheating my whole life, Connell admitted. Looking for shortcuts, trying to win without doing the work. It took losing everything to understand that real success doesn't come from taking what isn't yours. It comes from growing what you're given. You're growing now, Adewale said. Slowly, but you're growing. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not, Adewale agreed, then smiled. But that's what mercy is, giving people what they don't deserve. Papa used to say that justice is getting what you deserve, but mercy is getting a chance to become what you could be. Connell's eyes filled with tears. I wasted so many years being jealous of you. I see now that you didn't have an easier life, you just made better choices. While I was in Lagos pretending to be important, you were here building something real. They sat in comfortable silence as the fireflies began their nightly dance across the fields. Chioma visited from Lagos the next weekend. She and Connell had been talking on the phone regularly, rebuilding their relationship slowly. When she saw him, lean and healthy, his eyes clear of the haunted look they'd held in the hospital, she cried. You look like yourself again, she said, embracing him. I feel like myself for the first time in years, Connell replied. The real self, not the fake person I was pretending to be. Folake prepared a feast to welcome Chioma, jollof rice, egusi soup, pounded yam, and fried plantains. The two families ate together, laughter filling the compound. Taiwo and Kahind, Adewale's twins, had grown to love their Uncle Connell, who told them stories and taught them card games during his breaks from farm work. Uncle Connell, Taiwo asked during dinner. Daddy says you used to live in a big city. Why did you come back? The table grew quiet. Connell looked at Adewale, who nodded encouragingly. I came back, Connell said carefully, because I forgot something important. I forgot that family is more valuable than money. I forgot that the land where your ancestors lived is sacred. I forgot that trying to take shortcuts only makes the journey longer. Did you learn your lesson? Kahind asked with a child's directness. I'm still learning, Connell replied honestly. Every day. As the year progressed, the farm continued to thrive. International buyers began requesting their produce, organic vegetables, grains, and fruits grown with sustainable methods. The Canadian partnership opened doors to markets Adewale had never dreamed of accessing. The village prospered. Chief Ogunlade declared it a new golden age for their community. Roads were repaired with funds from the farm's success. Electricity, once sporadic, became reliable. Young entrepreneurs started businesses, a restaurant, a mechanic shop, a textile cooperative. And at the center of it all was the land that had almost torn two brothers apart, but instead had taught them the most valuable lesson of their lives. 1 year to the day after Connell's confession, Mama Alaj called both brothers to the Irako tree. She was older now, moving slower, but her eyes were still sharp. The ancestors have a message, she said, pouring libation at the base of the tree. They say that this land has witnessed both the worst and best of human nature, greed and mercy, betrayal and forgiveness. They want this story told so that others may learn. How should it be told? Adewale asked. Through your children and their children. Teach them that the earth gives to those who respect it and rejects those who try to steal its blessings. Teach them that family bonds, though they can be broken, can also be repaired if both sides choose healing over hatred. She turned to Connell specifically. And you, teach them that a man who admits his wrongs and works to correct them is more honorable than one who is never tempted to do wrong in the first place. Your shame has become your strength. Use it. Connell bowed deeply. I will, Mama. I promise. That evening, as had become their tradition, the two brothers sat on the veranda. But this time, Connell had brought something, a ledger book filled with his handwriting. What's this? Adewale asked. My testimony, Connell said. Everything that happened, the jealousy, the theft, the forgery, the curse, and the redemption. I've written it all down. I thought maybe we could give it to Taiwo and Kahind when they're older, so they understand the importance of integrity. Adewale took the book, thumbing through pages of his brother's honest, painful accounting of his own failures and lessons learned. This is brave, Adewale said quietly. It's necessary, Kunal replied. Shame dies when stories are told in the light. I don't want to hide what I did. I want it to mean something, to teach something. They heard laughter from inside the compound, Folake and Chioma preparing dinner, the twins playing, extended family members who had come for a weekend visit. Life, messy and complicated and beautiful, continued around them. Do you ever regret it? Kunal asked suddenly. Giving me a second chance instead of pursuing legal action? You could have had me arrested. I deserved it. Adewale considered the question carefully. Sometimes I think about what Papa would have wanted. He split his inheritance unevenly not because he loved you less, but because he knew we each needed different things. You needed to find your own way, to build something yourself. I needed the land because I understood its value. And what do you think he would say about what happened? I think he would say that the land did exactly what it was supposed to do. It revealed the truth and demanded justice. But he would also say that mercy creates more growth than punishment. Look at what we've built together this year. Could we have built it if you were in prison? No, Kunal admitted. And I wouldn't have learned anything except how to be more bitter. Adewale smiled. Exactly. The goal isn't to punish people into righteousness. It's to give them a reason to choose it themselves. As the stars emerged overhead, painting the sky with ancient light, both brothers felt the presence of something larger than themselves, the ancestors, the land, the invisible threads that connected past to present to future. Chief Badmus, the crime lord who had helped Kunal forge the documents, was arrested 3 months later for unrelated crimes. During his interrogation, he confessed to dozens of forgeries, including the fake will. Kunal's public confession had already exposed the crime, but Chief Badmus's admission corroborated everything. The magistrate who had been assigned to the original land dispute sent a personal letter to Adewale, commending him for resolving the matter privately and showing the kind of traditional wisdom that modern courts often lack. News of the story spread throughout Ogun State and beyond. A journalist from Lagos visited the village to write a feature article titled, "The Farm That Forgiveness Built." It went viral on Nigerian social media, sparking conversations about land disputes, family conflicts, and the value of mercy. Kunal received messages from strangers, some praising his courage to confess, others condemning him for his initial betrayal. He read them all but responded to none. His focus was on the work in front of him, not the opinions of people who didn't know his full journey. 2 years after the confession, Chioma agreed to marry Kunal. The wedding was held in the village, under the irako tree where he had poured libation and asked for ancestral forgiveness. It was a small ceremony, family and close friends, but it was filled with genuine joy. Adewale served as Kunal's best man, a symbolism that wasn't lost on anyone present. I stand beside my brother today, Adewale said in his speech, not because he's perfect, but because he's perfecting. We've all made mistakes. The question isn't whether we fall, but whether we rise, and whether we help each other rise. The farm continued to grow. By the 3rd year, they employed over 100 workers, and the Canadian partnership was expanding into 3 neighboring villages. Adewale and Kunal had become a model for sustainable agricultural development in West Africa. International NGOs visited to study their methods. Universities sent researchers to document their cooperative approach. The story of 2 brothers who overcame betrayal to build something remarkable became a case study in conflict resolution and family business management. But for Adewale and Kunal, the success was measured in simpler terms. The respect they had regained, the trust they had rebuilt, and the legacy they were creating for the next generation. Taiwo and Kahind, now 10 years old, worked in the fields during school holidays. They had heard the story of their uncle's betrayal and redemption, told age-appropriately by their parents. They understood that people could make terrible mistakes and still deserve a second chance. One afternoon, Kahind asked her uncle a question that stopped him in his tracks. "Uncle Kunal, when you were stealing from Daddy, did you know it was wrong?" Kunal knelt down to her level, looking into eyes that held his brother's same directness. "Yes, Kahind. I knew it was wrong." Kunal knelt down to her level, looking into eyes that held his brother's same directness. "Yes, Kahind. I knew it was wrong. Then why did you do it? Because I was angry and scared and jealous. I let my emotions make my decisions instead of my principles. That's always a mistake. But you're good now? Connell smiled sadly. I'm trying to be good now. Every day I try. Some days are easier than others. But I never forget what happens when I make selfish choices. Taiwo, who had been listening quietly, added, Daddy says you're the hardest worker on the farm now. Your daddy is kind. But I work hard because I have a lot to make up for. And because I finally understand that honest work brings peace that shortcuts never can. The children ran off to play, leaving Connell with his thoughts. He looked across the thriving fields, the modern equipment, the workers harvesting crops, the lives that had been changed by this venture, all of it built on the foundation of Adewale's mercy. At night, he still sometimes thought about the curse, the nightmares, the feeling of the land rejecting him. But now those memories served a purpose. They reminded him of the cost of betrayal and the value of integrity. 5 years after the confession, Mama Alaj passed away peacefully in her sleep. The entire village mourned the priestess who had served as their spiritual guide for decades. At her funeral, both Adewale and Connell spoke about how her wisdom had saved their family. She told me the land would have its revenge, Adewale said. But she also told me that forgiveness could transform that revenge into restoration. She was right. Connell added, she saw my curse not as punishment, but as a wake-up call. She knew the ancestors weren't trying to destroy me. They were trying to save me from myself. I'll be grateful to her for that understanding until the day I die. The village appointed a new priestess, a younger woman who had studied under Mama Alaj. She promised to keep the traditions alive, to counsel those who sought wisdom, and to protect the sacred connection between the people and their land. On the 10th anniversary of their father's death, Adewale and Connell stood together at his grave. They brought palm wine, kola nuts, and the first harvest from a new section of land they had just opened for cultivation. Papa, Adewale spoke to the headstone, we hope you're proud of what we've built. The land you left me has blessed not just our family, but the entire community. Your wisdom in writing that has borne fruit beyond what you imagined. Connell added, his voice thick with emotion, and Papa, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I doubted your judgment, that I let jealousy poison me, that I dishonored our family name. But I want you to know, I've learned. Your land taught me, Adewale's mercy taught me, and now I'm trying to teach others. I hope that counts for something. They poured libation together, their hands on the same cup, the gesture symbolic of their unity. As they walked back to the compound, Connell said, Do you think Papa knew? Do you think he knew I would try to steal the land? Adewale considered this. I think Papa knew your struggles. Maybe not the specific actions you would take, but the temptation you would face. That's probably why he structured the will as he did, not to punish you, but to force both of us to grow. I had to learn leadership and mercy. You had to learn humility and the value of honest work. He was wiser than I gave him credit for. Most fathers are, Adewale said with a smile. Today, the Adebayo farm is one of the most successful agricultural ventures in southwestern Nigeria. It employs over 300 people, exports to 12 countries, and has inspired similar cooperative models across West Africa. But more importantly, it stands as a living testament to the power of ancestral wisdom, the consequences of betrayal, and the transformative power of mercy. Visitors to the farm always ask to see the Irako tree, the ancient giant that witnessed both the crime and the confession. A small plaque has been placed at its base, with words chosen by both brothers. This land remembers. It blessed those who respected it, rejected those who betrayed it, and restored those who repented. May all who work here remember, what we sow in deception, we reap in sorrow. What we sow in truth, we reap in abundance. Connell reads those words every morning before starting his work. They keep him grounded, remind him of how far he has fallen and how far he has climbed back. And every evening, when the work is done and the sun sets over the fields that almost destroyed him, he gives thanks to to the ancestors who corrected him, to the brother who forgave him, and to the land that taught him the most valuable lesson of his life. You cannot steal a blessing. You can only earn it one honest day at a time. 20 years have passed since Kunnal's confession under the MIRACULOUS tree. Adewale is now gray-haired and moves with the careful dignity of a man in his 60s. Kunnal, too, has aged, but his eyes carry a peace that was never there in his youth. Taiwo and Kahind have grown into adults. Taiwo runs the international export division of the farm, using his business degree from a Canadian university, paid for by the farm's scholarship program. Kahind became an agricultural scientist, developing drought-resistant crops that she tests on their family land. Both of them know their family story by heart. It's taught to every new employee, shared with every business partner, and told to every child born in the village. The story of two brothers, a cursed inheritance, and the mercy that broke the cycle. Kunnal's children, two boys and a girl, work in various capacities on the farm. They've grown up hearing their father's testimony, understanding that their comfortable lives were built on his willingness to confess, repent, and rebuild. On the 25th anniversary of the original will reading, the entire extended family gathers at the compound. The celebration is massive, over 200 family members, employees, and community leaders. Chief Ogunlade has long since passed, but his son serves as the new village chief. He gives a speech about how the Adebayo brothers transformed not just their family fortune but the entire region's understanding of justice and mercy. When it's Adewale's turn to speak, he's brief. Our father left us an inheritance, but it wasn't just land. It was a test. Would we let greed divide us, or would we find a way to unite? I'm grateful that, despite the pain of the journey, we chose unity. The land is thriving because we learned to thrive together. Kunnal speaks next, his voice steady despite the emotion. I stole from this family. I lied, forged documents, and nearly destroyed everything our ancestors built. The land cursed me for it, as it should have. But my brother's mercy gave me a path back to honor. To anyone listening who faces temptation, trust me, the shortcut is never worth it. The curse of stolen blessings is real, but so is the blessing of honest work and genuine repentance. As the celebration continues into the night, with traditional dancers, drummers, and endless food, the Irako tree stands silent witness to it all. Its roots run deep into the earth, connecting to the bones of ancestors who watch over their descendants with approval. The land remembers everything: the betrayal, the curse, the confession, and the restoration. And it continues to bless those who honor it with truth. This is the way of ancestral justice, slow, certain, and ultimately merciful to those who choose the right path.